517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
This is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast. I'm your host, Time Bomb. With me this week, I'm very excited to have back on the podcast again. I've got Reign here. Reign, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
That delay for a second, I was like, did we lose him? Is he there still? Okay, we got him. And also with me this week, glad to have him on, Elusive. Thank you for being on the podcast for the first time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, great to have you. And this kind of started a little bit from us sort of talking about, the state of the game a little bit. So I thought it was a good idea to have Reign here as well, because it was like almost 10 weeks ago, I think, the last time I had you on, and we were talking about, the Hail Mary post for all those things that we kind of wished that we could have seen change. And that's why I was kind of thinking about that episode when we were talking Elusive, because my stance was kind of like, I don't want the game to change. I'm happy with the game exactly as it is. That's kind of my reflection of it since that point. But you've raised a good point to me, Elusive, that they've changed the game all year and I've still played it. So, you know what?
Actually, that wasn't my point. That was someone else that made that
was someone
point.
else's point. Okay, well, I shouldn't give them
I
credit
shouldn't
then.
take credit for it.
No. But
I'll accept it if you like. But.
If you like, sure. I mean, overall, the conversation, I have thought about it a lot, and I'm like, you know what? I should be... that's the thing. It's not that it was a little harsh for me to say I love the game the way it is and people don't. Like, everyone loves the game for different reasons. I'm just happy with the game as it is right now, maybe more so than other people.
Yeah, and I think, like, don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy this game, but only sometimes, right? And if you do certain things in this game, then it is a very enjoyable, like, impactful experience. If you do other things in this game, it can be less so.
And I guess that's where, when I think about the game as the most enjoyable, like, all year, when it was a heavier PK version of the game, I didn't enjoy it as much as I do now when it's less of a PK version of the game. Now, keeping that in mind, I'm open to that. Keeping in mind, I'm open to it being an evasive game where PK could be higher, maybe with somewhere the custom settings are kind of going. But you know what? Before we get into that, since this is your first time Elusive, we should talk about your background to Star Wars Squadrons and flight sims. How did you get into them?
Well, my favorite game of all time was TIE Fighter, right? So I'm exactly that demographic.
Yeah.
I love the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games. I remember playing those on keyboard and a joystick that had like literally two buttons. There was a thumb button and a trigger, and that was it. And I mean, it was just, they were great games. They had like depth. They put you in. They were immersive. Like, there were a lot of missions where you're just sitting there like escorting a freighter, wondering if something's going to happen, listening to the chatter on the board. They're just great games. So like, and Star Wars has always been like my favorite IP. Mm-hmm. So like, this game coming out when it did, it was ideal. I've played like Elite. I've played a little bit of IL-2. I played the hell out of Star Wars Galaxies. I was straight up feared in Star Wars Galaxies. So my friend Cody and I wrote the book on the TIE Advanced. So.
Okay. Were you playing, so you're a PC player, are you playing on flight stick, or how do you play?
I play on a flight stick, Warthog and pedals and the whole shebang.
Oh, wow, so you got the foot pedals
it's not,
too.
I do, with all my foot macros.
Foot macros, oh! Honestly, I haven't...
If you want, I can tab over and show you my my target profile, and you'll find nothing untoward in it. So
nothing. Hey, I think everyone knows Elusive is on the up and up, that's for sure, but... The only thing that I'm curious about is I haven't talked to anyone who runs like foot pedals at all. So, in context of Squadrons, what are the controls that you have on the foot pedals?
Yeah, literally just yaw, because the Warthog, the stick, doesn't have a twist. That's pitch and roll, and my feet are yaw. So
that's all it is. Yeah, cool. That makes sense.
That's literally all it is.
It's pretty simple.
There's like a pedal that you can press down, and I don't have it bound to anything. It's just.
Oh, is it the single pedal? Now I'm also curious. Is it a single pedal or one for each then?
No, it's two. It's the Thrustmaster pendular one. So if you put the right one in, the left one comes back, and it does this whole deal. And that's all I use that for is yaw. So aiming.
That must be feel kind of like a full body workout then too, if you've got your feet moving.
It is. It's a pretty physical game.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
I also play exclusively in VR, so it's like it's a very physical game.
That's one thing too that I've noticed for a lot of heavier PK players, often VR players. What do you think? Do you think there's a relationship there? What do you think?
I think
Sure,
there might be something to that.
Mhm.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the VR adds a certain dimension to it. You get a better sense of the scale. It helps with my aim because you get better depth perception.
Yeah.
So I'm able to track the targets a little bit better. Now, when I first started playing, I was on PS4, and that was supremely grainy. And honestly, I just did it because I liked the immersion. On PS5, the graphics are a little cleaner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because by virtue of the graphics, the more horsepower that the PS5 offers, but there might be something to it.
Is it a different headset from the PS4 to the PS5? Or is it the same? That's why I thought it would have been kind of graphic similarity, but no, it's because.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
It's the same one.
Mhm.
The PSVR is pretty old technology compared to VR sets that are out today. They did announce PSVR 2 coming out sometime next year, though.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Sony was pretty generous. So as long as you showed them the serial number on your old VR processor box, they sent you a conversion adapter for the PS5 for free.
Yeah, that's actually really good. That's an amazing.
Yeah. So
upgrade.
it was a seamless transition. Yep.
So I think I have seen a lot of VR players kind of specialize in PK. I mean, there was kind of like the meme about the A-Wing mains kind of being in VR. And also, clearly, though, the A-Wing in VR probably has the best actual view of right?
It's
Nothing beats
the
a glass
situational awareness of the A-Wing is really kind of next level.
Yeah.
And the TIE Fighter is nothing like that. The TIE Fighter, it's not really an advantage at all, except for having the depth perception, and it can be very disorienting. And you also have to get into the mindset. Like for me, the TIE Fighter is no peripheral vision. It's a murder tunnel. Whatever's in front of me, I need to be killing it at all times forever. Like that's
we talk about
that's like my headspace.
But
VR is a definite advantage, and I was already used to it coming into this because I played some in Elite. But
the one thing too about perspective too, which is like a weird thing I noticed on the last episode of The Mandalorian when they're in like what we call like a light cruiser in the game, like a frigate, right? Like that's what Moff Tarkin, I think his name is in. And
Gideon.
Moff Tarkin. Moff Gideon's in that one, and you see like the TIE fighters come out of the launch tube, and just thinking about it in the game, I'm like that scale is not right at all. But then someone told me in VR it makes more sense. Is this true?
it does, yeah. And I have a move I do that no one's ever commented on, but maybe you'll notice it. Is I like drifting through that slot, especially with the Plasburst X-wing.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like you should be able to fit, but I think I did make it through with a Y-wing, and we were all like tripped. Something weird happened. Yeah, like I was like I didn't even know. Yeah, so that's kind of funny.
So that's part of the whole immersion factor of VR, right? Is that like because sometimes I play on pancake mode if I'm like just popping in trying to load out or something. Sometimes I'll multitask. I'll whip out my stationary bike and play on the controller, and like hop in a custom dogfight or something. But the sense of scale is amazing in VR. Like everything seems bigger when you're up against ISD. It just seems massive. So everything, you just really get the sense of scale of everything, and everything just seems much more impressive.
And when things fly at you, and when you fly through things, and when you pull off when you fly through the little holes in Galatan or whatever, it's just it can be wild. And the only downside to VR, I think, is number one, you can get sweaty. That's why I have my standing fan back there. And number two, Galatan sucks. Just because red is not the best color, I think, for VR headsets. Okay. I'm told that green stands out the best, and so like an entire map of like orange, it can be hard for your eye. It can be hard on your eyes.
Might just be a human eye thing. There's something where like the human eye sees the most shades of green too, so that might be easier than that. Yeah, weird fact.
Well, Galatan's got a Galatan no matter what. Though.
Yeah,
Galatan's the Galatan. It is, yeah. And then so like I'm late to this game. I picked it up in like after October when it came out. Like I got it, I played it for like a day, but like that whole month and a half there is like my work's motherfucking Catalina wine mixer, right? So there was just no time right when the game came out, so I picked it up after that. So I missed the early era of the A-Wing is incredible and the TIE Bomber has million trillion hit points, but no one knows how to fly yet.
No one knew how to fly. If you watch old footage of people in October, it's honestly hilarious. Like I've got a video that people just roasted me for because I'm like, it's like Time Bomb leads his team to victory or something like that, and like I'm just like using the assault shield and just like so randomly, just I don't know what I was thinking with it. I was just like, you just use
got 120,000 capital ship damage and 18 deaths.
I mean, the game was. I didn't even play Fleet Battles for the first month. I was just like, I guess I didn't come from any like objective-based games. I didn't have any experience with the previous Star Wars game, so I was just like, I'll just do dogfights. It's kind of like deathmatch. That makes sense to me. It took me a while to transition over. It is funny though, because like coming from someone from anywhere else, I assumed that would be like the main part of the game, whereas like it's only sort of a part of the game, and more as the years gone on, the whole player kill side has been like minimized, kind of like we were talking about. Like now, how do you guys see it? Like there's so few ways to kill people. Like you're talking, you gotta ion dunk them, you gotta tractor beam them, or you have to become a plasburst expert. Like that's basically it, and you have to work with several people to get it done.
Yeah, so
I don't think it's fair to say that PK is dead. Like I've seen that, and I've said that, but it's not fair. Like you're PvPing the whole time. I just think it's like an unsatisfying experience, and that it's unfortunate in the game that there are times where it's actually preferable to not shoot the person that's shooting your Star Destroyer or whatever. You know, it's like, I mean, we'll just let that guy go because it's easier to kill this AI pack. It makes more sense.
It's actually crazy because, like, as someone who's a bomber, like, I can see the frustration when, like, someone works you down to, like, 40 hull, and you just call for your resupply. They get you back up, like, you know, like, they do it again, you're like, resupply. Like,
I think you got back to the MC75 at, like, 4 hit points when we played the other night.
Yeah. I was just like, well, because I didn't have my trusty resupply there, so I was like, oh, I have to be, like, a real player now and go back and resupply myself, you know, like, yeah, it's, like, so dumb, right? Like, I recognize that.
The support ship is a big factor in why PvP is so hard, right? It's not something that's talked about a lot because, like, before the resupply meta, what was everyone using? The mask and beacons. So you couldn't kill anyone because you couldn't freaking target them, right?
Yeah.
So now resupplies were always good. They were never not good. But yeah, I mean, like they scale up big time on the on ships with more hull points or health points. Right?
Yeah.
So there is no more frustrating experience than beaming down a bomber.
I mean, the difference.
You land the cock, you land your burst lasers. It's down to 13. You got it down, and here comes the resupply. Damn it!
U-wing comes flipping across the screen and repairs everyone. You can't hit the U-wing either because it's being erratic, just random.
It's
across your screen.
It's funny the difference too, because like on New Republic, like when I'm a Y-wing, I'm like, yo, probably don't heal me till I have shields again. But like on the Empire, it's like, yeah, just keep them coming all day long. Like it's just such a difference. And so it's like one thing, the tank. So getting player kills harder to secure because there's tankier ships on the Empire side. Support ships are the most, when flown correctly, the most difficult one, if not the most difficult, one of the most difficult ones to kill. And then also,
number 2,
the gasping shield ships that you can basically shield skip to recharge, right? Like, so it's such an uphill battle.
I think you hit it right on the head before Time Bomb. Is that like PvP has probably been kept more relevant than it otherwise would be if it wasn't for the ion missile. Ion missile. You know, ever since your video came out, now everyone and their mom is doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the great equalizer in Squadrons. But like, good luck trying to kill a high-level player with just lasers, right? Like you almost, it's almost required if you have hopes of PvPing. So,
and that's the amount of players you have to dedicate to. So it's like not just that you have to dunk them, is that you need another player there probably, and maybe a third player too. First, you need a third player to strip the shields down, like the scrambler shields down, to just normal shields, so then you can dunk them, and then you need someone else there to finish them out. It's just madness, right? Like how many people you do
dedicate. And then you need a support should be running those beacons too, right?
And the beacons have to be on point so one before that happens. The beacons are out. Yeah.
PvP nowadays, so the ion missile is pretty fun, I think, but it's kind of like who can like sneak around with their baseball bat and club the other person in the back of the head first.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it feels like, really. I'm personally, I don't fly ion missile anymore, hardly ever, because I'm like bored of ion missile. You know,
Yeah.
And you know, the other great PvP aux in this game is ICT, which you don't even have to fucking aim. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, oh, let me press this button to PvP. I've pressed the PvP button. My PvP is PvPing for the next 15 seconds or whatever.
It's basically like a turn war then. Well, then it's once you have the ICT on, it's a turn war because you're just keeping them in that position so you can continue ICTing them and that they're being evasive. So you're trying to...
And just so you know, when I'm trying to kill you with the ICT, I'm also, not only am I trying to keep on you, I'm also trying to not spend the 1 second it takes for me to die in front of you if you turn on me in my TIE interceptor. But I'm also trying to differentiate what is the top of your ship and what is the bottom, and to be on the bottom so your damn ion can't shoot me.
Exactly, and that's the game, right? It's like you getting under the tummy and me trying to keep my nose in front. Yeah, that's so funny. And defenders, it is a funny thing because it's like defenders will get mad about the ICT, but it's like, yo, you're flying the defender. Like, this is the one thing.
Yes,
you'll be okay, defender pilot. And I say that as a defender pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I basically quit defender after I got GA. I just I did the Obi-Wan so uncivilized thing. So if I fly a defender now, I fly like kind of a bad one. Because you can still fly a bad defender and be great. Like, I don't know if you knew this. You can throw a thrust engine and a nimble shield in there, and you're still perfectly effective. Like, it's not the same, but it's still a great ship with half the shields.
You can just do anything. I don't fly the defender like ever. I feel like I'm still like working my way through other ships before I get to the defender, like that I'm behind on. But you think you basically throw anything on the defender and it's still viable.
So,
probably, right?
Yeah, and it's like, the thing about the PvP experience is, yeah, you can kill people if you get 3 people on them, but the whole time you've got 3 people shooting someone, they're absolutely wrecking your cruiser with with impunity, right? Like, there's, as an individual player, there's very, I have to almost luck out to get an objective player to stop doing their job even. It's very frustrating, like a defender especially. Like, the defender just, every time I shoot at a TIE defender in an A-Wing, I ask myself why I'm even bothering to do it. And that's not fun.
Yeah.
Like, as a player, as someone flying the A-Wing, the ship that is ostensibly supposed to be the PvP ship in this game, like the main PvP ship for the Rebel side, as a person flying that, I feel absolutely powerless to do anything against some of these ships.
You could make a pretty strong case that the U-Wing is a better PvP ship in some ways than the A-Wing right now, just because it can carry ion missiles, right? Like, or tractor. It's just crazy.
And look at the TIE Bomber. The TIE Bomber has 6 times the A-Wing's hit points. It's faster than the A-Wing in practice because you can boost infinitely, and it's got the infinite fuck you gun.
I don't even use that one.
Also, it can farm.
I use standard.
Also, you have Goliath. You have Goliath missiles, which will area kill any A-Wing that happens to be nearby just by happenstance. So it's not a great PvP ship. The thing that it has going for it is that it's got a little bit of a good burst. Not compared to the TIE Interceptor, but it's got a good burst, and it's kind of hard to kill unless you decide that you're going to try to kill it, in which case they're actually pretty easy to kill.
Yeah, if they joust you.
And seals are not good at the A-Wing, because it's still hard to hit. But if you're not actually playing the flight sim part of the game and you're playing the let me just power manage and throw missiles at you until you die part of the game, the A-Wing, because it starts to get not very good. In fact, who is still flying the A-Wing that isn't in this chat?
People. Right now? Stardude from Hut is the only person who's really coming to mind. There's very few people, right? Like, in competitive flying it.
Right.
Jester flies the Interceptor, but he doesn't. I don't think he flies the A-Wing. He could go X-Wing that side. Very few people.
The A-Wing players. Cycle of grief is this. It's I can't make standard lasers work anymore because I spend all my time shooting at TIE bombers and I never have laser charge. So the only thing to do is increase the level of resource generation in my ship, which means I probably run either Nimble or Scrambler, and I probably run Rapids because Rapids actually give you weapon energy to play with, but it's harder to then chase people, right? So you're like, okay, Rapids are great, and that's fine, but I still don't have enough engine energy. What if I went Plasburst? Because Plasburst, all I have to do is flick my power into weapons and I'm good. And then I can leave more power in engines. Now it's easier for me to chase people, right? And then you go, so I'm an A-wing. I have like 600 shields. What's the A-wing have, Rain?
Oh, 400. Or
Like,
400
okay.
shields, yeah.
400
Mhm.
shields, and you look at
Yeah.
the blast burst damage, and it's pretty high. And then you go to X-wing, and you look at the blast burst damage, and it's the same number. And you go, wait a second, I could fly my A-wing with my 400 shields,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
My 400 shields
Or-
A-wing and my reflect hull, or I could go to X-wing, and I would have not only more shields, but also the ray shields, a dampener hull, a jet engine, maybe a boost extension kit, an ion missile, and
Yeah.
those same guns. Like, just the X-wing is just the way better version of the
Yeah.
Plasburst A-wing. So like, if you try to follow the A-wing naturally to where it basically it says
Mhm.
it says to you, fly X-wing instead.
Yeah, it's
So
just like
it-
at a
it
certain
kinda
point.
sucks.
Okay, so that kind of leads me to what I'm kind of thinking. So two things I think here. One, I do think player killing is actually increasing. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I mean, you could kind of look at the SCL final there. Those games, the ICT games, did push a crazy higher game time. Like, game time was like 10 minutes. There was more player kills. But the other thing I think, and you don't see as much, is, and you're just hitting it on the head there, why, when player killing is so hard to do, why are not more players using Plasburst to get the kills? You really only have a few players who specialize in it. Some people are starting, I think we're going to see more of it, but why do you think it's been slow to come around, the Plasburst?
Because it's hard to use.
Yeah.
It's the short
Yeah.
answer.
It's
Yeah.
hard to
It's
use.
very difficult.
It's very difficult to
Mhm.
use. And like, when I switched to it, I dedicated a lot of time to getting like really good at it. And when I switched to it, that's like, I saw my KD jump like a point and a half. I won, was it Op Ace Baron for doing Plasburst?
Mhm.
Like, Plasburst is great,
Mhm.
but the downside is it's laggy. The hit reg is something you have to get used to in almost like every individual game.
Mhm.
And it's still not very good against certain things. Like, Plasburst versus Defender is not very good, especially if people are running Ray Shields. If they're running Scrambler, yeah, Plasburst is okay. But if you're running against people with Ray Shields, like, you got to get like 3 or 4 fully charged hits on them,
Yeah.
really.
So I wonder if someone like Arios maybe had an advantage where he started to use it earlier in the year before people were more evasive. Like, it's just harder to learn how
Yeah.
to use it against super evasive people, whereas he's like,
It is, yeah.
been using it as people have been getting better. Maybe that's kind of why he's been able to kind of stick with it. But I do see more people using it. I could see that
I
kind
also
of coming
think it's
up.
not fun.
Mhm.
And that's my problem with
Yeah.
it. Like, I switched to Plasburst and I'm great, but again, I feel like Obi-Wan with the so uncivilized thing. You know,
Yeah.
I just like, I switch to Plasburst when I need to, and I'm just the whole time I'm like, fuck,
I mean,
I don't like this.
as a bomber,
It's fun one-shotting
that's
TIE
it.
interceptors.
Oh man! Oh yeah, that must be. I mean, bombers though,
but-
taking 50% of your hull is crazy, right? Like, if you think you're fine,
Mhm.
and whatever, 50 something waiting for that resupply, and then you get knocked down, you're like, oh shit! Like, it's pretty crazy that way. So I see the power of it.
The joke I keep making is that I don't run Plasburst because I like Plasburst. I run Plasburst because I hate TIE bombers.
That's a great. Like, yeah, it's kind of like a weapon of frustration, I guess. It's like, well, I guess there's nothing left now, but I kind of get your point too that the A-wing is like, what's the point of using it in the A-wing? You may as well get it in an X-wing, and then the X-wing has all the tools there, which has kind of been a problem all year since the torpedo meta started rising and A-wings got the nerf.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of
X-wing's
people
been
didn't really
overpowered.
realize how good X-wing
Mhm,
was
mhm.
because they hadn't figured out the right way to fly it.
That's right.
Like, X-wing now is different than X-wing used to be.
Yeah.
The one saving grace that the A-wing has actually has two saving graces. To me, it still has the best overall lasers on NR. It has
does.
way stronger standard lasers than the X-wing, and it has the quick lock missile, which the Empire has the Defender and the Interceptor that can run a quick lock, and only the A-wing can do that. So the quick lock is probably the second best PKOX behind Ion missile.
ICT.
Well, okay, third best.
Yeah, I'll agree with you.
I'm like, wait.
I do agree with you,
It's
but
up
yeah, I think we'd probably put it in the same
But
place.
I think
It's
that's a
pretty
good
good.
segue to talk about what you put together, though.
I do think so. I think we've kind of covered all of the bases of kind of all of these issues. So
Yeah.
now, how do we move forward? How do we make the game kind of like better PK wise to deal with a lot of these issues we talked about? And kind of, you guys have been testing this stuff slowly, and why don't we kind of let you guys kind of take over and talk about this now?
Yeah. Do you mind if I start out, Elusive?
Please do. Yeah.
No, go ahead. And if you don't mind, I think my pizza just got here. So
Oh,
I'm gonna
that's
grab it
important.
really
Get
quick
your
because I
pizza,
haven't
man.
eaten since lunch.
No worries.
So So Time Bomb, you said right at the start, we all love the game, right? And if we didn't love the game, we wouldn't be playing all the time. I wouldn't be playing as much as I am. But I think we think guys like Elusive and I anyway, and I think a lot of other players think that the game could be better. So this kind of came. Well, Elusive kind of pitched it to me like, hey, the developers are done balancing the game. We're not getting any more updates. What can we do to make the game better? And so he pitched to me this rule set that I think you first tried it out in Weaver's Discord, right, Elusive? The rule set.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to make sure we give them the appropriate shout outs because Weaver and his crew, does he have an actual name for his?
The Hollow Net, I think.
The Hollow Net, yeah. So like Weaver and Stardust and Ondo and a couple of these guys, Evil Coleslaw, they have Wednesday night customs that they do, and they go play, and they don't take it super seriously. And they have more fun playing that way than they have fun playing the kind of the meta game we've all been playing in the comp scene. So. And I hang with those guys sometimes, and they have complaints about the game, which I feel like are really legitimate. And I thought, I'd been toying around with this idea of they're not really going to give us our last patch. I wonder if there's a way that we could play this game that makes it more fun for everyone. I wonder if there's anything that we can do, like to decide on as a community or maybe in a certain league or tournament or something like that puts these ships more on equal footing, because we've got all these awesome Star Wars ships and like 4 of them are good, right? Like the B-Wing, can you imagine fleet battles with like red and blue lasers streaking around everywhere, B-Wings drifting in and doing bombing runs, and can you imagine being afraid of that thing and like needing to kill it as opposed to just being like B-Wing, that's cute, right? I feel like the variety of the game has been killed by the fact that everyone's playing in this certain way, and only using these ships that are really good. And so what if we make those ships less good? What if there's a reason to use these other ships? And so that was the idea behind the modified rule set. Well, and around the same time, a lot of other people were having this idea too. And Adala and Medic put together this Squadrons modified server because they wanted to explore testing out like custom games and stuff. And basically, a bunch of people I had been talking to this about messaged me and said, you need to hook up with Adala and Medic. And I talked to them and they were like, oh yeah, this sounds great. And the way that you're proceeding with this and proposing to proceed with this sounds great. Let's just do that here. And so the Squadrons modified server that was set up by them kind of became like our nexus for throwing this together. And the idea was that what we're going to do is we're going to make like really small incremental adjustments, try to like control our independent variables, and just address like what's the most egregious thing in the game right now and how can we make it better. And so we just started banning components, right? So the X-Wing is too hard to kill. It gets all over the place. It boosts infinitely. What if we didn't allow people to use the jet engine, right? That was kind of our initial thought process. So that's how we ended up where we are now, ish. And I feel like I cut Rain off like 8 times. So
no, it's cool. No, but so and to kind of underline what I was going to say before, the devs are done with this game, right? So the game, I think people like you, Time Bomb, you're one of the few people I've heard to say I wouldn't change a thing in this game. I was like, that is a hot take.
I know. I legitimately love playing the game as it is right now versus all other versions I played this year. So fair point, right? And I obviously enjoyed this game as is. If nothing was changed about this game, I would still enjoy it very much. I think if you poll most high level players, they would say, or the whole community, they would say it could be better. What would people change? I think most people would not want the under throttle pinballing, right? The under throttle instant acceleration with the boost mechanic. That's clearly kind of wonky, right? And it's Can I just interject though?
So
I'm the one who loves it though. I do love it. I'm like, you know what? This makes sense to me as coming from a non-flight sim at all. I'm just like, this is a mechanic that I can get behind right here. But I understand I'm the minority to many people.
imagine explaining that to someone who's brand new in the game. You can actually go faster if you set your throttle to 0.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Like, what?
Hey, how do you get out of the tractor beam?
I was seal in solo queue the other night, and he was like, "I'm so thankful you showed me some of this stuff because I would never have figured it out on my own."
So here's the thing: pinballing's here to stay, right? It is here to stay, as is multi-drifting. You know, I really don't like multi-drifting. Can't do much about it. You know, being on console, I don't have access to the tech. We covered that pretty well on the last podcast we did, right? But you know, it is what it is. I've talked to people in the comp scene to get feedback about why it's not banned in tournaments, and they pretty much told me you can't enforce it.
Yeah,
hard the spot. It would require a lot of manpower to referee it, right? So, given all these problems that we in multi-drift, I
it
think
is hard to spot.
It's
it
is literally impossible. People have accused.
People have accused me
everyone, right? Like who
as a
don't?
console player.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm literally physically incapable of doing it. I promise you, I'm not multi-drifting.
Yeah,
right. So, but I think if you ask most people, almost nobody would want multi-drifting still in the game. So. What can we do about that? We can ban components to make it so you can't pinball as much, and you can mitigate some of the advantages that some of these weird mechanics give, right? So like you get rid of jet engine across the board. Now it's harder to boost gas. Now you have to think about when you're using your boost a little bit more. You can't just have it on all the time. And then go ahead, Elusive. I think you want to jump in, or are you still chomping on that piece?
So I guess this is my only thought, right? Like, so in competitive, there's two different kind of gaps that are created. There's skill gap and there's knowledge gap. Why I don't have a problem with multi-drift for the most part is because and a lot of these things, zero throttle, shield skipping, boost gapping, whatever you want to call these things, the power management you need to be successful in this game is that they're mostly knowledge gap things. There's tech gap where you can't do it on console, I guess, as well here. There's that factor, but that's why I don't mind these things. I think they create skill gaps by having the knowledge. So that's why I like something like that. But sorry.
Well, okay. So what knowledge am I missing?
Sorry. So this is in reference to you saying to that guy, if you hadn't told him about that, he would have never figured it out.
I think with some of those things, knowing about them doesn't like it's like multi-drifting. Knowing that someone is multi-drifting does not help me at all kill them. There's nothing there's nothing the knowledge of multi-drifting is going to do to help me kill someone who's multi-drifting.
No, you're right about that.
If a thing makes someone like almost arbitrarily hard to kill in certain situations, they're still almost arbitrarily hard to kill.
Yeah.
So let me go back to a point. So I think if you ask most comp players, you ask me, so I'm going to be biased because I love PK, right? Elusive's going to be biased because he loves PK too.
Sure.
So I don't think the game should be like November, where everyone was getting 25 kills and 12 deaths. That was a little silly, right? And I do think you don't want to ban so many components. It's something we're cognizant of as we're doing this, right? You don't want to eliminate the skill gap. The best pilots should still be the best pilots. Right. And like there should still be a skill gap. And I don't think this does that. But I think what we want to do, we don't want to make it so PvP wins games. But maybe if you think of it as a continuum, and the game is maybe 85-90% toward PvE, we want to make it maybe more 60-40.
Yeah. And
just move the slider down. I mean, I don't know what the right number is, right? But let's move it a little bit more toward PvP.
And
in so doing, generate more variety in the game experience.
I think so, because the big problem too now is like and I've talked to people like Reaver. I don't know if you remember Reaver. He was around earlier in the game, maybe not. He was someone who I talked to this morning, hasn't been around in like months, and he's like, oh, still the AI. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think AI was probably intended to be such a huge factor as it is, right?
No, I mean, and like Elusive said before, like, I bought this game because the appeal of it to me is that I'm in a Star Wars starfighter and I'm going to shoot other players controlling, starfighters. And it's in fleet battles, like you said, you can never change the game so you can PvP your way to victory because your goal is to destroy the other team's flagships, right? But isn't it intuitive to protect your flagships by shooting the other players trying to shoot your ships, right?
Yeah.
and that's not how the flips occur. The flips occur via two AI farmers shooting NPCs, shooting the raider, in killing that, and 1 or 2 player picks.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now, Time Bomb, to your point, there
And the
was
player picks are
more-
never like, oh, I caught this guy and I got him. It's always like, oh, we all shot at him until eventually he exploded. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Or I happened to land the dunk on him. Now, to your
Yeah.
point, Time Bomb, SCL this past weekend, I watched a lot of the games. There was more PvP,
Mhm.
and I think part of that is that you saw very PvP heavy teams in it, right? Splinter and CAG, CAG didn't have Knight. Splinter is very much, not as PvP heavy as say Imperial Guard or
Right.
Randalorians. But to me, that made it much more entertaining of a product to watch.
Mhm.
I think the most boring comp games are the ones of the endless shots of X-wings doing orbits around the cruisers. Right, like the Randalorian's flagship defenses, where they got player pick after player pick with the ICTs. That was super exciting to me.
I couldn't believe the lengths of the games. Like it was like just a breath of fresh air from what we've seen for the last little while in Squadrons. I was like, what's going on here?
But weren't those games more exciting because there were more phase flips
I
than
think
you would
so.
otherwise anticipate?
I
Yeah,
think
and
so,
so
yeah.
They're certainly less predictable if there's more phase flips.
We were
I mean,
like-
occasionally you'll get the heroic out of the phase defense where you
Mhm.
can stop, you can keep your ship alive with 10 hit points, but
Mhm.
most of the time you can't. Most of the time, 60 hit points on a Star Destroyer is like, I will get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, we cleared the back turrets where we'll be able to get behind it. Yeah, it's fine. No worries. So we got it. It's beaconed.
Right.
Targeting's
So-
down.
So do you want to talk about some of the specific component choices that we made? in
Yeah,
terms of
let's
the
let's
bands?
talk about our component choices. Let's talk about our like direction that we're taking. Let's talk about what we need, and let's talk about our subjective experience playing these games with these rules.
Sounds great.
All right. So right out of the gate, we said, okay, how do you make Republic players less evasive? You got to get rid of the jet engine. Like basically, the idea is, what if you couldn't boost all of the time forever,
Mhm.
right? And that's gonna I know that you've got questions now that I've said that, but we'll get there, right? So the jet engine's gone, and then we also said no slam engine if you're also taking the boost extension kit, because with that it's pretty easy to just never ever run out of boost 2. And then we said, well, okay, so what do we do about the TIE Defender? Because like the two most egregious things are infinite boosting Republic ships with shield skipping and boost gasping, and also infinite boosting TIE Defender with shield skipping and boost gasping, right? So we said, okay, well, how do you even fix the TIE Defender, right? Like, like it's so ridiculously OP. So we decided, I should say, this one was probably mostly all me. You either have to run the thrust engine or the nimble shield. The idea being the nimble shield is the smallest shield, and it makes the TIE Defender a little bit more like gankable, basically. And the thrust engine makes you fly with a very different flight profile that's less pinball-y and more, I would say more, it's not any easier to kill, but it is a little bit easier to make it have to abort an attack run in the thrust engine. Right.
Okay.
Like you can kind of turn someone away in it.
You're kind of more
so
limited.
like the idea was you have to build your TIE Defender around one of those two components, which I thought was cool because it kind of makes it into like one of two different kinds of ships, really, because it handles very differently with that thrust engine.
Yeah, and I found when I was running the thrust, I hated the nimble shield because it's too papery for me. But the thrust engine, I actually kind of enjoyed playing it in that like I actually had to make strafing runs on the MC-75. I couldn't just fly up to it, slow down, mosquito it for a few seconds, and buzz off. I actually had to do strafing runs, and I felt like I had to be more strategic in how I attacked things. And
Yeah,
it just felt better. It made
the
it
attack
feel,
runs are more cinematic too.
right. It actually made it feel more like the other ships in the game because the TIE Defender has the weirdest movement. Maybe except for the B-wing. Because of the discrepancy between its like normal top speed and its boosting speed, right? It's like the widest disparity in the game. So you almost have to pinball in the Defender for it to be good.
Yeah, oh, definitely. It's like, what did they say? It has like
Without
a
the
high
thrust
skill
engine.
ceiling. Like it has a high skill ceiling. I
Yeah.
think they said, right? Like you have to be skill. And I don't know. People were kind of confused with it for like a week, and they all thought it was bad when it came out, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
it was
then
right.
Right.
I guess I'm also curious. What about like? I know I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just wondering. I don't know the actual limitations or abilities in game. Can you adjust the hull? Like, would weaken or shields at all? Like individually on ships?
So you can't do that. So the only thing you can do, you can ban certain ship classes. So you can't, like, for instance, scale down the hull of the TIE bomber. You can ban countermeasures, but yeah, you're actually kind of limited what you can do. You can change, I think, laser damage and the health points is kind of globally for each faction.
Right.
But you can't do it on an individual basis. So I can just read off the current rule set.
Well, let's
Okay.
we never touched on the last point, which was no multi drifting.
Oh, right.
Which was our first
Please.
one.
Sorry.
And I got talked out of no multi drifting
By me.
by Rain, and I hate
Who hates
multi drifting
multi-drifting?
more than anyone. I'm pretty sure I hate it more than, but I got talked out of it. But yeah, let's read off where we've settled for now, because the first thing was, okay, TIE Defender is a problem. Republic ships are just kind of a problem in general. The next thing we addressed was the TIE Bomber, and the TIE Fighter, and we hit them by taking away the rotary and the burst cannon. The idea that being the rotary engine or the rotary gun on the TIE Bomber has a lot to do with its ability to just kind of like stay in the field, right? And I don't fly TIE Bomber like at all, so maybe I'm the wrong person to explain this. But the idea being that you're kind of lowering the energy availability. You're kind of like making the battery smaller for the TIE Bomber.
I think I've got a great suggestion actually how to adjust the TIE Bombers. I think your TIE Fighter is perfect, because honestly, shunt charging without the burst in the TIE Fighter is super annoying. So you can't.
Well, it's still doable. It's just not doable forever.
Exactly.
It's doable
It has
at extended lengths, even, just not forever.
It's a great way to mitigate that. But the bomber. So this is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Change the don't allow rotary jet or rotary slam or standard slam. So like get those combinations out there, and then they can infinite boost.
Yeah. So my first inclination when we were brainstorming how to address the bomber, and by the way, I want to say too that the involvement across the community in this has been really invaluable. And actually, I was kind of talked. It was Fenkar who gave the suggestion about banning the rotary cannon and the burst cannon.
Yeah.
My thought was to ban the reinforced hull on the TIE Bomber.
That was my first instinct
yeah,
too.
that makes
because
sense.
people would be too attached to the rotary.
And that makes sense. And then Fenkar pointed out that by virtue of the amount of laser energy that the rotary cannon has, it serves as a giant boost battery.
Yeah.
Same thing for the burst, and obviously more so for the burst cannon on the TIE Fighter. But you ban that, you reduce its energy pool, and then you also address the DPS disparity, because the TIE Bomber, what did you call it? The fuck you cannon? I had over 800 DPS. Way outclasses anything that the New Republic has, right? And it's pretty well known Empire has a serious DPS advantage over NR. So this actually addresses some of the faction balance too. And we have to keep in mind too, we banned jet. And one of the reasons we banned the rotary cannon and the burst cannon too is that we found that like NR was pretty severely nerfed by the no jet, because Empire can just shunt. Right?
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, I would just use my standard slam. I would be unaffected completely in the TIE Bomber. That's the only reason why I'm like, oh, you have to ban standard slam combo too, because you can.
The only reason we didn't hit the TIE Bomber first is because I'm OCD and I wanted to like make the smallest changes possible and just let
that's the right way to go. That's the right way to go. Sorry,
to be honest,
I'm just
we
totally
could have skipped
interrupting
ahead.
you. So I'm totally interrupting you. Go ahead, there, guys.
I'm sorry.
No, you guys go for it.
So, that's why we hit TIE Bomber. And then after that, basically, the next thing became, okay, we're going to let you multi-drift now, but we're going to address the problem by forcing balanced power management instead of advanced power management.
Basic power. I mean.
Sorry, basic. Not balanced power. No one should ever use balanced power for any reason ever, and I'm not arguing that should ever be the case.
No, it was
it should be ever different.
Now, that suggestion came from Jareen, which I thought was a pretty good idea. My first thought, so let's look at the Scrambler Shield and why. So supports are unkillable for a lot of reasons, right? There's a lot of factors that go into a player's evasiveness. So you got the boost gasping technique, right, which everyone has access to. You got shield skipping, you got multi-drifting, you got pinballing, you got all these things, right? So the Scrambler Shield to me is very problematic because it exploits shield skipping. Right, shield skipping on its own with a normal shield to me isn't as bad, but shield skipping allows you to bypass the 200% recharge delay that the Scrambler Shield is supposed to have.
Should we describe shield skipping for those who are unaware?
Oh yeah, so shield skipping is basically where you can, if your shields are getting hit, there is a delay before they start recharging again. But if you use advanced power management, if you drain all energy out of your shields and dump it right back in, as soon as you dump it right back in, you'll bypass that cooldown.
So, like, if I'm flying Defender and I get shot, all I have to do is go up left on my little power hat and then back right to my shields, like, really quick. This motion right here. My shields are recharging again. You shot me, more shields, more shields.
Yeah.
Right?
So I actually wanted to just ban the Scrambler shield because, but Dreams, like, you know, I don't know if multi-drifting is the biggest factor. I think shield skipping is probably a bigger factor in terms of why players are harder to kill. And I was convinced.
Completely agree with Dream there.
Yeah, yeah. So
it was very insightful. Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky to have him. Because I feel like if we didn't, we'd have gone a completely different direction that would be more complicated. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. No, and so so these guys' input has been invaluable, and I just want to give shout outs to like lots of members of Nova Squadron, CA Gold. I can name drop all sorts of the guys that have helped out with this, and their input has been great. So yeah, by basic power management, I kind of balked at that too because I really like advanced power. Right, I like half charging something else with full power something else, but it solves shield skipping, and it
really doesn't make the gameplay that much different. It's still like the same fun Star Wars Squadrons experience. It's just that you can't trust the don't die button combination.
And it disincentivizes the Scrambler shield, which I think in what limited games we've had with this current rule set has made the support chips a little bit more mortal.
And that's the thing, right? Like that Scramble shield, as well as being like the worst because you can just bypass the negative of like that recharge penalty.
Yep.
Also, having the Scramble shield up more makes support players so much harder to dunk. Like I was talking about, you got to get through the Scramble shield almost to get the lock on to dunk them with beacons. Like it's just an extra thing that they have to keep the Scrambler shields fully up all the time.
Well, here's another interesting thing about this rule set that's come out of this is that the ion dunk is not necessarily the only way to kill people now, right? So, like, if I'm running A-Wing and I'm even using like standard lasers or something, my ability to chip away with someone that can't shield skip is much higher than my ability to chip away at someone otherwise, right? So, maybe I don't need that ion missile sneak in. It's actually easy to just hit them with lasers. Like I don't need that. Maybe anti-starfighter missiles. Maybe there's other stuff that I want to run that's actually useful now. And then that also means not only is ion missile, like less people are using it, so there's not as much of a reason to need the Scrambler shield, right? Like you've shifted things a little bit more towards shooting people with your fucking laser guns, which I think is a positive experience. Now, even though in the support player, they can still do the whole thing with the multi-drift, right? It just, and they still very much have control over their like survivability experience because they're so mobile. It's just they can't stay in as long. Like their shields depleting is actually a problem for them, not a momentary inconvenience.
And you can actually get a missile.
It's the same for the no jet engine. Like if you've ever if I would say something I advise people to do is go solo queue and run something that's not the jet engine against, if you care about points, maybe just don't do it against a really good team. Or if you get seals, maybe it's a fun time to test out like playing and not like meta to the gills loadout. And just seeing how it feels. And basically, you can do all the same stuff. You just can't do it all the time forever.
You have to be more selective about it. And that's the brilliance of the changes, I think. I liked that I had to be choosy about when I was boosting and drifting when doing orbits. Right? Or like, when to drift around the Star Destroyer instead of just doing it infinitely.
When to respond at someone shooting at you.
So it's kind of
and that's fundamentally what changes the PK experience in this new game for me, is because you're aware that you don't have access to all of your resources all the time, and so like you're forced to actually respond when I'm on you. You can't just be like, oh, let me just do this, and I shot 4 torpedoes while you chased me, right? Like so, you go, oh fuck, I have to dodge, and then the enemy PK player has to be like, oh, Elusive is on time bomb, Reign, get over here and kill Elusive, and then Reign comes over and kills Elusive, and then you wish, and then time bomb gets to go in and shoot the cruisers and stuff. Like there's a lot more interplay, and in most of these games we've been trying to test balanced, and it's put me and Reign against each other on the other side. But I feel like my experience is made like I have to care about Reign a lot, and I also have to care about like defending my things a lot, but I've got to be aware of Reign all the time. And like there's this whole interplay that's happening. Like our game experience is not only more satisfying but also more engaging because there's a reason to do the thing that you're doing. And so if there's a reason to actually be a PK main and not just be flex all the time, then there's a whole extra layer to this game that's happening.
You're right. PK
it's a lot more fun to me.
PK is effectively dead. One thing that's interesting to me that you said there about how you're sending multiple missiles and people are evading the missiles. Do you notice now because people are less evasive that maybe countermeasures are more of a factor? Like, do you find people like can't have to blow their chaff and it's a bigger deal now because they can't evade missiles or anything like that?
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, it's hard to like pick up on a lot of these things. Like sometimes you play a game, and all of these games, keep in mind, we're testing these with some of the best players in this game that we can find. Like we're not going into solo queue and being like, oh, Chicken 495, do you want to come play this custom game with us? No, we're getting like Curious and Chilla and Jareen and Adala and Medic and Reign and myself.
Mage and Rob, Jashiqua, Tasty Bites. So and actually that's a good segue. So the way we take data is that we get screenshots, right? And the problem is it's not that scientific because we can't always get the same group of people every time, but the skill level is pretty much the same in every playtest that we've had. You know, like I said, it's guys like Jashiqua, guys like Knight. You know, everyone that's playing knows what they're doing in this game, right? I think what we found is that even if the data doesn't necessarily tell us anything conclusive, because our sample sizes are pretty small, but it certainly seems like people are dying more. Right, not in November levels because evasive pilots are still hard to kill. But where was I going with this?
Well, I just to comment on something. Just because PK is more effective doesn't mean people will necessarily die more. It just means that people have to adjust their level of like penetration, basically. I keep saying like not everyone just has to get used to not being all the way inside the cruiser all the time on your attack phase.
Right.
Like
well, what we do too is after the games we have like a breakdown session. We talk in the same voice channel. Like, how did that feel? The feedback we've consistently gotten from most people is that felt better. I think it was Goat from Grade that said that like I like that you can't just go in and cowboy something by yourself anymore. Yeah, you actually have to fly in with
you can, but not only do you have to be really, really, really good, but you can't do it forever, right?
Yes,
like you can cowboy for a little bit. Like you can cowboy pretty hard in a TIE interceptor, which we haven't changed at all,
right?
Because there's no way to fix it.
Yeah, and then people are trying to. What I liked is that people are experimenting pretty hard, right? So like there was a game with. I think it was Knight and Elusive, and I don't think they ran an AI farmer. And they tried to just PK. They ended up losing that game. You still have to AI farm, right? So
the meta seems to be pretty close to where it is now.
Yeah,
right,
unless
so
the morale changes, AI farming is going to be pretty strong always.
Not going to go anywhere, right? And then there's the problem. You kind of have to have the AI farm too because you need an incentive for people not just to just park themselves, on their frigate line and just let the passive damage do the work, right?
Yeah.
So
the game breaks without the AI farm. You can't.
Right. So you need the AI farm, right?
And that's a suggestion I've seen people put forward, like, oh, just eliminate AI from the game and we'll play that way. And now you have to PvP. That doesn't work. Like the game breaks. You can't. It doesn't work without it.
So it's an altered game, right? But it plays similarly to how the game plays unaltered. But I think better.
It's almost like you need it to be like Quidditch without the thing where it's just like the game ends if you destroy, like that's the golden snitch. By destroying a flagship, it's over, but kills are like the score. You know what I mean? You only get so many points for winning. You're right. It's just broken. It just doesn't work without the AI. You need it there to make it work in some sense. So where are we at now? We kind of covered we talked about the experience, I guess, pretty much now from doing it. Any other points? Any last thoughts about it here as we wrap up?
Before you think that it's just a ban fest, I think, one of the things that we want to try is now that basic power management is out, like maybe we unban some things, right? Like maybe maybe shield skipping was more of a problem than we thought, and maybe the movement experience of the game is just fine and can be as fun and as fast paced as it is, while also the PK experience cannot be as slog because people can't shield skip anymore or something like that.
So you'd have to watch it like the Defender.
There's still
the Defender, for instance, just as viable with basic power management. So there you would need to leave
absolutely
X-Wing as well.
But that still doesn't do anything.
I'm like, maybe they're still all just as viable.
And that doesn't
basic,
that doesn't do much. That doesn't do much for the Imperial ships either, right? You still got like something that I've tried to figure out how to address, and I can't figure out is what do you do about the disparity between TIE Interceptor and A-Wing? Because the TIE Interceptor has more hit points, has instant access to both agility and firepower, and also does more damage than the A-Wing, and also. Did I mention that it has infinite access to agility and firepower all the time? Yeah. And it's no contest which one is like the more powerful ship. But it's kind of balanced out by the fact that the A-Wing's actually pretty good at killing TIE Interceptors. It's like one of the things it's still pretty good at. And then also the fact that the TIE Interceptor is still a very vulnerable ship. Like you only got to point your lasers at it for about a second and you got one. It's and not only is it a vulnerable ship, it's a ship that you can turn away. Like with the TIE Defender, like having low shields is like maybe you need to get out, but a lot of the times it's a temporary inconvenience, right? If you've got low hit points in the TIE Interceptor and your repair ox is gone, like you're gone. You've got to get out. Like you have to, or you're going to die. It's not like you don't have a choice. So like you can turn away the TIE Interceptor in a way that you can't really turn away. And it's kind of the same with the TIE Bomber, but the TIE Bomber is like I'm at 80%, it's fine. At the TIE Interceptor, you're like, I'm at 80%, I have to be careful. Because that's still like that's like someone looks at you wrong or an unstable engine or something like that. So it's kind of like the Interceptor is still like, even though it's infinitely mobile, it kind of still balances itself by being kind of squishy and perfectly killable.
So as far as, right now you guys are still doing testing for the next little bit. Where do you guys see this going in the future? Do you plan on presenting it to the community at large, or where do you see it going then?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, when this started out, I was like, this might be fun just to kind of, dick around with. So Jareen, who heads up SCL, kind of sparked up my hope a little bit when he was like, you guys might be on something. Like maybe qualify it there. Yeah, if the final rule set is good, it could be adopted into SCL or something. And that got me thinking, if that were to happen, let's say it were adopted by other comp tournaments, it would filter down into ladder play as well, and I think would make the game more enjoyable overall for everyone who's not in a comp scene as well. So that's like pie in the sky, best case scenario. Now, I think the problem that with that is that you would require that much more manpower still for referees, and referees for comp tournaments are hard to come by. So you still might run into a manpower issue because like you got to make sure that people don't have like an illegal loadout, right? But the thing about these component bans and basic power is that it's much more easily enforceable than, say, multi-drift. And that's why I talked to Elusive out of it. I was like, I've talked about this.
I got talked out of it is because it really is actually unenforceable.
I think
because
so.
Like my position had been just unbind the thing. Like, just don't press that button. But I guess that basically, if you're on controller, you can't really unbind it. Is that the case?
Keyboard.
If you're on keyboard, you can't unbind it. Like,
I don't think you can. Yeah, it's
like on HOTAS, I have to bind it on purpose if I want to do it.
Right, and so again, it's not going anywhere, and it's hard to enforce, right? But like, it's black and white if someone's using advanced power or basic power. It's black and white if someone's using their rotary or not. Or if someone scores a kill with the rotary, you see the little rotary cannon icon.
Yeah.
Right. So
you can't hide it.
And you can ban it from what you said too. So I mean, it's pretty set up. It's easy to set up in the game, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, you cannot ban it in the custom. You talk about the custom game itself. You cannot.
No, I totally misunderstood that. Okay, gotcha. So it's just an overall ban. Okay, I misunderstood. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Right. So you could maybe like have a ref like look at to make sure the loadouts are compliant at the start, but then you could run into a problem if someone's trying to be a dick about it, is like sneak in on their third or fourth loadout slot in a legal thing like mid game, right? But you can make the penalty, I suppose, like really severe. But I'm not running SCL. I'm not a ref.
I mean,
I think it's going to come down to manpower, right? So that's where I hope it goes, but that's pie in the sky.
And there's also like, this is a pretty non-toxic community, and I feel like if you're saying, hey, we're going to go do something and have a level playing field, then people are going to be like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? This is fun. Like, that's every time I've pitched this to people, then I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
I'm the most hesitant because I'm like, I do not want this in SC.
You are, in fact, the most hesitant person that I've talked to.
For sure. That's because I've just spent so much time on this game. I'm like, I want that.
Fundamentally, it is the same game.
It is.
I think, like, my experience, because I flew Plasburst X-Wing with, like, a propulsion engine instead of, like, a Slam or a jet in one of these, and I still, like, racked up kills. Yeah. Like, it was like, oh, this still feels good, and you realize that good energy management is good energy management. Like, just because the jet engine is the best, better, whatever thing doesn't mean that you're helpless without it. Like, you're not. A lot of these people are like, well, this is an adjustment, but like, they're still hard to kill. They're still hard to shoot at. It's still hard to fly. Like, it's still like, it's the same experience. It's just like if you turn your difficulty slider a little bit.
I mean, it's one of those things we'll see, and I'm sure we'll put it probably to people, and maybe I could very well be the only person who's against, but we'll see. I think it would be awesome for like a one-off event to see all the teams like kind of have to do this. Like, I hope there's some sort of invitational in the future and everyone does it before it goes to a league committing to it, but I think it's amazing. So, like, I'm excited.
We've already seen really cool new stuff happen. Like Tasty Bites, I'm pretty sure in one of our early games, like, soundly wrecked us with a B-Wing. Like,
yes,
that's so funny.
It was pretty cool, actually.
Time Bomb, I would say too that I think, and this may be controversial, but I think things like multi-drift actually kind of erase some of the skill gap. And I'm not going to talk shit about specific pilots, but I do feel like there are some pilots that use it as a crutch, and there's some pilots that all of a sudden, when they started using the magic sauce that is multi-drift, all of a sudden they became a lot harder to hit, whereas a few weeks before they weren't as hard to hit. So I do feel like it's kind of a crutch that a lot of players use. It does take skill, right?
Yeah,
but I feel like with this,
and it's not a lot. And it's not like these people are bad pilots without it in many cases. But I definitely like
they've gone from pretty good to near invincible, right? And
the advantage this thing gives you has been vastly understated by the people who use it. and I say this as someone who started using it like 4 days ago, and I went, "Oh man, this is."
Evil.
Wrong.
I feel like it's both overstated and understated, right? Like, I feel like people will say that it's not as big a deal as people think, but then also it kind of is. I think both sides are kind of right. Like, it obviously gives an advantage, otherwise people wouldn't use it. But
the night I started using it, I got like 3 Discord shoutouts on like how fucking crazy my drifting was. Like the night I started using it.
But you're already a very good pilot. So what I'm saying is, it does make a good pilot better, but I don't think it's going to make someone who's not already a good pilot I don't think they're going to hit the button and be the best. You know what I mean? I don't think it's at that. It's going to help.
The best.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of my point, right? Is like with this modded rule set,
and press the button and it can make them out of reach of people who are very, very good.
This is Dynasty flying in with the point that I completely agree with. It's not that big of a deal, except in support ships. Support ships in competitive, you have to have a multi-drifting support player. Like, there's like it's like inconceivable between not to, basically, right?
So I don't want to stay on to start about multi-drift. I have a squad mate that started using it recently in the fighter class. So one of the things I think multi-drift, one of the advantages it brings that is understated is that the quick turns that it allows you, which allows you to have more uptime with your guns on target. Right, so if you're shooting a cruiser, you can keep your guns pointed at it that much easier, that much longer because of multi-drift, and it's that much more DPS pouring in. Likewise, you can turn on a target that much faster.
Yeah, it definitely like the Y-Wings especially, I found are a little bit easier to hit doing multi-drift in a TIE interceptor because you can get that extra like shift of time on target. And I don't know. I'm still like getting the feel for it, but I've noticed Y-Wings feel a little bit less awful to shoot at.
It's something we kind of talked about too a bit ago, Rain. I think remember we were messaging a little bit. The testing, there actually hasn't been any videos out about multi-drifting, really. Like, there was the video that Fenkar made. I think Radiant kind of made one, too, where he showed it a little bit, because Sheriff had found it out a little bit earlier, and they were using it, so... But there's not like there's a video that's like... that's what I've been meaning to do for a while, and I'm going to try to do it
I
next
want that
week.
A/B comparison.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so we can have, you know... maybe get Fame. He's a HOTAS console player, so he doesn't have multi-drift, and like I can get Gonk because I play with both these people a lot. He has multi-drift. We can kind of show both their perspectives and shooting them, kind of show these differences. We can kind of we've done some testing with Narcissist a few months ago, and we found it was not his multi-drift that made him hard to dunk. It was his shields. When he switched out the frame, it was like night and like when we did the testing with him, we found it to be. That was our opinion on it there. That was like 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. That was a while back. You know, whatever. Maybe things change, but like, yeah, that was our thinking.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. You may very well be right. And I found, like I said, you know, we decided to allow multi-drift because it's not enforceable, right? Mm-hmm. So I found that those support players that do multi-drift, all of a sudden I could get my missile locks, and then all of a sudden they're a little more killable. I think the Scrambler shield is as big of, and arguably more so, a factor than multi-drift.
Well, I mean, they're just synergistic, like a thing that makes you harder to kill when you're already hard to kill for this reason, and already hard to kill for this reason, and then that reason that makes you harder to kill makes this even better, and this even better, and it's just before you know it, everyone's fucking impossible to kill.
And that's why the basic makes sense, because you are kind of taking away. It's like, so what if you can multi-drift if you can't shield skift at the same time? I guess you might see that. I mean, so anyway, so. I kind of want to just do that testing just to see, because there's a lot of like, just like, you know, a lot of hearsay.
You're always welcome.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to come test with us.
That's really the thing that we need, right? Is we understand like the process of how we're going to try and balance this, and we understand, like, I feel like our goal is, or like our metrics for success are pretty solid, which is that like we generate a game that has more variety, that is balanced, hopefully, and that is makes as few simplest changes as possible. Yeah. Right. We don't want this to be complicated. We want this to just like be an easy thing. Right. So like Jareen's idea of let's just go with basic power management and call it there, like that addresses a lot. But I think we need a little bit more than that. But it could be the like, and our current rule set, I don't think where we're at now has been tested enough for us to understand where to go. So the thing that we need right now is more people to come test with us.
Well, right. Hey, I'm down to do it for sure. I got to come out and test this out because I was hesitant, but I'm willing to try.
When you release this, would you put like the link to the Squadrons Modified Discord?
That's actually where we should leave this off. What if people are listening to this? They want to be involved. You sounds like you want more people out. We should direct them there. Yeah, come on,
join us.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I think like some of the most fun I've had playing this game recently has been playing these modified games. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, or if you like playing the same game and just want to play against the consistently good crowd that we've had doing these nights, I don't know. I would love having more people to help us come test, because I feel like eventually we're all going to get bored of Y-Wings versus TIE Bombers. Like when it's going to get there and we're going to get bored of it, and then we're going to want to move on, but we're all going to miss that time when we could hop in an X-Wing and go fight Star Destroyers and, you know, fly TIE Interceptors and A-Wings and B-Wings and this really cool game that we had for a little while that's kind of slowly dying on us. Like I think that if you look at X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and X-Wing Alliance and that community and the fact that it's gone for like 30 years straight, like, and is still like, people are still playing these games, means that and this being the spiritual successor to those games, I think that there are people who are going to want this game to live for a very long time. And I think the hardcore player base that's here right now is not, you know, it's getting smaller at a smaller rate, right? Like there are people who are going to stick around for a long time. And I think that they would rather have a more interesting game to stick around with. And I think that's what we're producing. And I think that if we all kind of do this as a community effort and have those metrics of success in mind, I think we stand a better chance of like doing that. So, if you like this idea, if you think that maybe the way that we're going about it is wrong or something like that, I don't know, like it's called the Squadrons Community Modified Server for a reason. Come join us. Come help us put test games together. Come help us come give us input. And like basically we've had a couple people come in and just immediately just kind of make themselves invaluable. And we were like, well, you know what? You're on the team now. Get in here, Dream, you old bastard. Guess you're on the team now. Like, so that's, come join us. That would be very helpful.
Well, I'm excited to look forward, and I like that it's like not like it's like we're doing this now. It's slowly coming out, so I'm excited to see how it's going. I'm definitely gonna get in there and try to test it out here. So.
I know that we've got some frustration because we want to move faster with it, but it's hard to get people into test, right? So the next night,
scrims, people got real life,
Yeah, I totally get it. Even doing like the race night thing, it can be kind of tough to get because like I had to do a lot of testing, kind of figure some of that stuff out before. Same thing, it's tough.
Or if you want to do the GA grind, encourage your good friends to go test, so that there's less good people for you to have to go fight when you do your GA grind.
But I also need their points, though. I need them playing to get the points from them. It's such
good point.
It's the worst.
Good point.
It doesn't work out that way. I need the GAs to solo queue. I need my legends there. It's so hard.
That's something I'm seeing. I'm very pleased to see this operation. Is a lot of people got GA earlier, like duo queuing and stuff, and queuing, just because they understand that's how the points get back into the system.
Yeah, they do it. Not enough. I want them to do it more still, but somewhat. Actually, right now there's a GA drought. You GAs need. I'm telling you right now, get playing solo queue out there. Get those points out there to the community. We need them. You guys
give them the time bomb.
So
come give
our sort of cadence has been about like 10 to 20 games, and then we talk about how we iterate to the next version of the rule set. I think on our current version, we've only got a couple of games in. Okay. But man, if we had a custom night or something and just brought a bunch of people in, we could get a lot of data real fast.
Definitely. So, gentlemen, I got a roll. I got a scheduled scrim, actually.
Completely understand. I mean, we're pretty good on the pod. Reign, where can people check you out in any way? Are you streaming or anything like that you want to put out there? Completely understand if not.
I'm still not streaming, but you can find me on the Cavern Angels Discord. I'm on most of the large Squadrons Discord, so hit me up.
Awesome.
Reign1701A.
Thank you for coming out, and just to wrap up with Elusive, where can everyone reach you?
I'm the Elusive Drop Bear on Twitch, but I don't stream that often anymore, partially because my new streaming setup is complicated and I'm too lazy to get it set up. So,
great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm going to put it out there for anyone to reach the mod
Thank
server
you for having us.
Guys, great to have this talk. Glad we could have a nice talk about everything, multi-drift and all that stuff, kind of get into it. Good to talk about it. And yeah, future of the game. Looking forward to the developments you guys have. So, thank you, everyone, for checking out the podcast this week. Thank you guys for being on it, and we'll see everyone next time on the Star Wars Squadrons podcast.
Scanner control. 517 scanner control.